Now joining us live for more updates from the World Economic Forum in beautiful Davos, Switzerland is Arise correspondent and Arise Business Week anchor Rolake Akinkube Filani, who's looking equally as beautiful as the scenery in the Swiss Alps. Good morning, Rolake. How are you today?
Good morning, Vimbai. Good to see you all. I'm indoors today, actually, so no scenery, but we'll make do.
All right. Well, day one of Davos has just wrapped up, of course, yesterday. Now, from the opening ceremony to the early conversations, what kind of Davos have we stepped into this year?
Very interesting question. Of course, day one, we had this grand opening ceremony that was full of AI visuals and classical music. The main speaker there was the CEO of the World Economic Forum, Borge Brende, and his message was very clear and unequivocal, and it was really listen to different voices on the global stage. This was a message that was shared and corroborated by the co-chairs of the World Economic Forum. So that was a really poignant moment, I think, against the backdrop of all the tensions we've talked about. And I think what was pretty clear was that there needs to be some firm resolution to some of the key standout disputes at Davos this year. And I think the opening ceremony clearly delivered that.
Okay. You anchored the opening of Nigeria House. How significant was that moment, and what message was Nigeria deliberately sending to the global investment community?
Well, the opening of Nigeria House was quite monumental. We had a few teething issues, but in the end, I even had to step in as an anchor for the program at the last minute, like delays. So it started in very an eventful way. But I think the highlight was really around the launch of the investor playbook by the Federal Ministry for Industry, Trade and Investment. The Honorable Minister, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, MFR, did that launch. And we also had a keynote address by His Excellency, the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. And their messages were very clear. I think there were two things that particularly stood out. The Vice President did say that one of the reasons they had been intentional about actually establishing a physical Nigeria House at Davos was to, in his words, rewrite the wrongs of the past. And this idea that Nigeria needed to take her place on the global stage in a more visible way. I think the second thing that which was a takeaway from the speech by the Honorable Minister was the fact that Nigeria is not a speculative story. And that really stood out and stuck with many of the participants. We also had, participating at that event, the Honorable Minister for Science and Technology, Dr. Kingsley Ude-San, and we had the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry for Solid Minerals representing the Honorable Minister for Solid Minerals, Dele Alake. We then had, coming in halfway through the segment, His Excellency, the Foreign Affairs Minister, Ambassador Yusuf Tugar. So you could clearly see that the launch of Davos, Nigeria House at Davos, and the Investor Playbook was a collaborative effort. And the message was, we're not just ready to do business, but we're open for business. We want to showcase the reforms of the government on the international stage. And more importantly, Nigeria is not a speculative story.
That's great. That's great, despite the teething problems there. I mean, America is the big elephant in the room, already dominating conversations. You know, so from the U.S. House, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's comment, what is the U.S. signaling? And also, what should we expect from day two? Maybe you could just, broach over the anticipated speech by Donald Trump.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. I think day two is already packed. There are three broad questions that are defining day two. The first is really around innovation, AI, and energy security. And we can expect on the energy security session a keynote address by the Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, as well as the CEO of BHP Billiton. And I think the merging of energy security with AI and innovation is an interesting nexus because we have another discussion where we see the CEO, Amin Nasser of Saudi Arabia's Aramco, on a panel talking about innovation and AI. And it just goes to show how there's sort of cross-sectoral thinking around how artificial intelligence and technology will drive the future of many of the key industries around the world. We also have some very important statements and remarks by Emmanuel Macron, the president of France. We expect him to be making some remarks on the current state of tension between Europe, NATO, and of course the US. We also will be expecting US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who actually I bumped into on the promenade yesterday outside USA House. He had a media engagement where he talked about the fact that any planned retaliation from the European Union in relation to the Greenland dispute would be, and I quote, unwise. So very strong words there from the US. We expect him to reiterate that. And I think the final two remarks we should be looking out for will be by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. We've seen how he's reaching across the aisle to engage deeper with China. We expect him to talk about China-Canada relations. And finally, Ursula von der Leyen, Commissioner of the European Union, who we also expect some very strong words in terms of geopolitics, technology, and particularly around regulation of AI and the digitization across key sectors in the European Union. So it's going to be a packed schedule today. And for Nigeria House today, the focus is on energy. A keynote from Wale Tinubu, CEO of Oando, and more importantly, later around 4 p.m. in the afternoon, we expect the coordinating minister for the economy, Finance Minister Wale Edu, to also deliver his keynote, and Arise will be there live to sort of hear what he has to say and hopefully convey that to our audience and to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Rolake, and all the best with the weather in that very cold city of Davos.